Welcome, friends. Today I'd like to begin and end with a reading from Ernest Holmes, in which he wrote, "Maybe the journey isn't so much about becoming anything. Maybe it's about unbecoming everything that isn't really you, so you can be who you were meant to be in the first place." Today we're talking about the way it works. Last week we talked about God, what is God, and today we're talking about the way God works.
The way it works. Last week I talked a lot about the scientific approach to things and how we base a lot of our spiritual principles on those scientific truths. I think it's really important to understand that, and I think that the thing that really is important to us to understand is the idea that that which connects us scientifically or materially and spiritually is something called consciousness. So the consciousness is the connector between what is scientific and what is spiritual within us. What is of matter and what is of spirit within us, or energy. Now at the atomic level, things operate a little bit differently than they do here at the macro level, and subtle energies are more profound. If you don't believe this, try fixing your watch sometime. Take it apart and try to take those little screws out, and you'll realize that what you think are really subtle energies with your fingers suddenly are magnified tremendously when you try to get those little bitty tiny little screws to go where you want them to go. And so things happen a little bit differently there, and it's hard for us to understand what exactly is going on there. But here's what they have found through consciousness, or dealing with consciousness. Thoughts have energy, or thoughts are energy, and interact with atomic matter, which is, at its fundamental level, energy. Energy interacting with energy. Now, to make it really simple, all we had to do was say that matter is not form and structure. It is actually is energy at its fundamental level. And so, therefore, as soon as we say that matter is energy, it all falls together. That's why Einstein said E equals mc squared, and all of a sudden everything made sense. Energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. He was saying that matter is energy. So therefore it all kind of makes sense to us, and it all falls together. There's this thing called the problem with quantum measurement. And when scientists are studying quantum atomic energies and trying to figure out how things are going to happen, our expectations and our predictions and our desires or biases influence the outcome of the quantum experiments, because our thoughts interact with the matter, because the matter is actually energy, and what we're actually working on is energy. And at the energy level, our thoughts can interact with those things which are matter at the energy level and can determine different outcomes. So no matter what we're hoping to see in that experiment, we will see it, because our thoughts are influencing. Our thoughts have such a subtle energy, but remember, at that level, everything is subtle. Like when you're trying to fix your watch, every tiny little movement is really big. So this is a scientific evidence that thoughts do interact with matter. It's like we always thought of thoughts and matter being like oil and water. The two can never interact with each other, but they actually do, because if you just realize that matter is nothing but energy to start with, then it does make sense. Consciousness is where we as physical beings connect with our spiritual side. Our human nature and our God nature are one. It is all spiritual showing up in the physical, so we are spiritual beings having a physical experience. We can directly apply this to our spiritual practice, to everything we do spiritually. Where could we find a more accurate description of what prayer does, or what prayer is, or the power of positive thinking, or creating what we desire through our thoughts? All we're doing is collapsing possibility waves into particles, and that's scientific, but it is also nothing more than consciousness, which is spiritual. Or is it?
Yes, it is. Wow, well said. So how does this work in our life? Well,
Good question.
It is a good question, and I'm going to help you figure it out. And one way is to look at this idea. Have you ever said to yourself when something happened, I knew that was going to happen? Yes, because we attract and draw it to us. We think about it so much, it becomes what is our reality or our apparent reality. And have you ever had that go the other way? I can tell you, the other day I was talking on the phone with a girlfriend and I decided to clean the pool at the same time. And it was one of those really cold days. And I was leaning over and grabbing the leaves with my hand while I had one hand at the phone. The other hand was grabbing the leaves from the pool. And I thought to myself, oh, I hope I don't fall in. And suddenly I lost my balance. And I was thinking, oh no, I'm going to fall. And then I thought, my phone, the water's freezing. And I thought, no, I cannot fall. Now, all of these ideas, these thoughts collapsed into that one moment. And I got my bearings back and got my balance and pulled back away and decided that I wouldn't reach for those leaves that were so far away. Now, it's a funny story, and it might have been funnier if I'd fallen in, at least for those watching, but it wouldn't have been funnier for me. My kids might have liked that I'd had to get a new phone because they say mine's a dinosaur. So there would be some funny elements to that, but it wouldn't have been funny to me in the moment. You would have thought it was funny.
Yes, I would.
But I noticed how I switched my thought. And I can remember times where I have fallen into the pool where I just knew I was going to. And so I just went with it. And in this moment, I decided I was not going to. Now, granted, there is a law. So the way that things work is whichever law is the most powerful is going to have the effect, is going to demonstrate in our life. And in that situation, I was on that tipsy-turvy moment of making the decision that I was not going to go and regain the balance. Had I allowed my thoughts to continue to ponder how cold that water was and how horrible it was going to be for me to lose my precious phone, that would have been a different scenario, I do believe. I believe that our mind is that powerful. Now, I'm not saying that we or I can always grasp the power that we have within ourselves. But I will say that I believe that power is always present. And I know that I myself have healed myself from physical, quote-unquote, dis-ease. And I know that many around me have also. So the way spirit works is in just this way, through the mind. We live and move and have our being in spirit. Ernest Holmes wrote, "The life which we live is the universal life expressing through us. Else how could we live?" It is that life that's living and expressing itself through us and as us. And as you and I have thoughts and emotions, we are making use of spirit, of mind, of the one mind, our personal mind within the one mind, God, all that is. And as we make use of that for good, we experience good unfolding. And like I said, there are, if I fall off from a skyscraper, I'm not going to be able to think, oh, I'm going to land gently on my feet, because that's probably not going to happen. Why? Because there's a greater law than my own personal mind in that situation. So life follows. God is subject to personal and spiritual principles that are godly principles. So we look then to the idea that sometimes as we're contemplating decisions in our lives, our thoughts, our emotions, we may be doing so consciously. But there is also that unconscious, that subconscious aspect of us that is playing out in our lives at the same time. And we call that our beliefs, our belief systems. And so when we're looking at the way God works, we have to look at the way we work within that system if we want to change our life. If we are not demonstrating to the level that we would personally like to achieve, regardless of what it is, with our health, with our finances, with our relationships, whatever it is as simple as change your thinking, change your life. Because now I say it's simple, it's that simple with those words, but we have to put the effort into it. We have to look at what belief system within me is driving this effect. What belief system within me do I want to shift? And how? What do I shift it to? And that's where David was talking about prayer. And prayer is so incredibly vital in our life. Not to pray begging for something, because that is to indicate that my belief system says it is not mine already. God, as the self-givingness of life itself, has already given each of us all that is. And from that we choose. And so as we choose carefully. And when we are in prayer, we are called to embrace the power of positive thinking, called to embrace the ideas that align with what God is: beauty, love, peace, joy, abundant good. And as we allow those thoughts to dwell within, and we open ourselves up and let go of any mental barriers that say, oh, well, you're not good enough. You don't know how to get that.
You're going to fall in.
Yeah. The many things we say to ourselves. Oh, well, other people can have that, but I can't. Wouldn't know how to get it anyway. All those ideas are negative thinking. They're stinking thinking. And we achieve them. And we can likewise achieve the other by listening to our own intuitive guide, because that is spirit. That intuition within, that inner space of the heart, of the soul, of the solar plexus, the center of our very self is God. And so when we allow that God to speak through us, to speak to us, and we take that direction, that inner guidance, and move forward with it, doing whatever it says and letting go of whatever it says, then we are trusting that inner guidance, and it plays itself out in our own life.
Ernest Holmes says, whatever thought can create, thought can change. It's not meaning that we can change the conditions that we are in, but it means that we can create new conditions that we choose to be in. And so when we treat and we create a condition in our lives, that condition will remain there until we release all the energy behind it that created that idea in the first place, that condition in the first place. We can even choose to keep bumping into that condition, or we can create a new condition by having a new thought, a new idea, a new preference, and bringing it into fruition. And so when we do that, we actually change the state in which we are living. We don't really change the condition that was there before, but we do change the conditions in our lives that are not allowing us to bump into that old thing anymore.
Yes. So how much can you demonstrate? You can demonstrate as much as you believe. That's evidenced in stories that we hear about, such things as people being able to move cars off from people when they rolled over them. You know, where did they get that strength? That's that inner strength. That's that God strength. It's a God thing. We often use that phrase, it's a God thing. Yes, it is a God thing. And you, my friends, are God things. You are a godly being. And all we have to do is step up to the plate, take hold of that bat, aim, focus, and hit that home run.